Hello and welcome back to my channel where I like to have fun with all things beauty while being critical about what I accept into my collection. Today I am doing a Sephora favorites video. So today my plan is to go through putting my makeup on step by step and talk about my favorites in every category. And then in a future video, I'm going to talk about things that I might be purchasing this time around. One thing that I realized when I was gathering all of these things together was that these are all hard-earned top products. Like, they've been the absolute top spot for several years now, so they've stood the test of time and they haven't been defeated, and I try a lot of makeup. You know, I obviously can't afford to buy everything out there, but I'm always looking, especially with foundation. I feel like I'm always looking for like the next best thing that's going to totally transform my skin. And I'm easily persuaded to try the latest and greatest, especially when they say things like blurring and filtering and all of that. So I've tried a lot of things and these are all my favorites. If you're new here, I'm new here too. So I do already have eye makeup on. I am not good at putting makeup on camera, like at all. I don't have the ideal setup and it's very hard for me to see in this room, and it's also, I'm in the living room. I'm at my work desk, so all of my stuff's not here. I have a mirror obviously, but like it's just not the greatest setup. I'm hoping if I keep doing this and I get better at it, hopefully I'll be able to put my makeup on camera more seamlessly. In the meantime, I do capture a lot of B-roll, and I do always try to do that in the most ideal lighting possible so you can see the things that I'm talking about. I know from this distance, and honestly, even if I zoomed in a little bit, like I have lights, so it's more flattering. It's harder to see the imperfections that I'm talking about. So for a lot of that, I'm going to need to do it in B-roll anyway. So I'll always include that. I skip doing my eye makeup on camera altogether because that's just painful for everybody. So to spare you, I've done that off camera. But another thing is I don't actually buy a lot of eyeshadow at Sephora. I love Sephora. It's my favorite store for makeup, except for eyeshadow. I really love eyeshadow. It's definitely the part of makeup that brings me the most joy, but Sephora doesn't actually carry a lot of the eyeshadow brands that I like. You know, I started with mainstream brands when I was new to makeup, but now that I've been doing this for a few years, you know, not doing this, but putting makeup on in a more artistic fashion, I've just gravitated to liking indie brands better, and I do still have staples like Natasha Denona forever. You know, I'm always going to buy Natasha Denona, but if I'm honest, that's kind of it, you know. So everything else I buy from a lot of different places, but for my base, I get almost everything at Sephora. So it was really easy for me to pull my favorites for this video because, like I said, they've been my favorites for a long time and they're 100% at Sephora. The only exception might be blush, because blush has been so incredibly popular the past couple of years now that I've branched out and I've bought some blush from indie brands and other places, but everything else is definitely mainly Sephora stuff, and I think that that's great for a lot of different reasons. Number one is shade match. So unlike an eyeshadow palette, for base products, I need to get the right shade. So I like to be able to go in store and try things out. They also tend to have bigger brands with more resources, so they can have bigger shade ranges, that kind of thing. I do really like base makeup in general, even though eyeshadow is like what brings me the most joy. Seeing my skin look better is another thing that definitely brings me a lot of joy. So I am always looking at foundations. I'm always interested in trying new foundations. So even though my top one has been in top spot for a long time, I buy a ton. You know, I certainly can't try them all, but I definitely buy a lot of foundation. What I also need to say at the beginning of this video is my skin type. So for base products, my skin type is less than perfect, is putting it nicely. I have melasma, hyperpigmentation, sunspots, acne, active acne, past acne, pitted scars, raised scars, pigmented scars, fine lines and wrinkles. What else? I'm not asking because I know people will point that out. I'm sure there's a lot of other things, but needless to say, less than perfect skin. My skin is also very dry. I am on pretty high strength tretinoin. That's to help with my acne. and it works. But the cost of that is that I have excessively dry skin, so I compensate with a lot of prep. Also, all of my base products are going to reflect choices by somebody with dry skin. So, that's not really a deal breaker for everything. I don't really think, eyeshadow, blush, bronzer, that kind of thing is really affected by skin type, but foundation and concealer certainly is. I'm 40 years old. I have less than perfect aging skin, so I like a little bit of coverage. I am looking for evening out. I don't want full coverage necessarily because I don't think that's the best for fine lines, but I definitely like some coverage. So medium coverage, these are all preference things, but definitely relevant when it comes to talking about base. So with that out of the way, I'm going to start with my eyeshadow. So my favorite eyeshadow palette in all of Sephora, hands down, no contest, nothing even came close, was the Natasha Denona Eyeliner Nude palette. Now you can get Natasha Denona at Ulta now, which means you can use points, so none of these things are necessarily exclusive to Sephora, but it's nice to get them on sale, and they don't go on sale that often. So I don't know if you can see, but I have two quite sizable pans. I use the fair shade to set my eye makeup. Well, I don't use it every day, but I would if I could. And I'm almost out of it. These tones are just what I find most flattering on my skin. I am neutral, leaning cool, and this is a very neutral palette. I really enjoy gray on me. This is actually what opened my eyes to even knowing that I liked gray on my, it never really occurred to me. I was always using black for a smoky eye, but getting this into my collection, I realized how much nicer gray looked. For whatever reason, it's just more flattering. So this palette really opened my eyes to the cooler tone of things, and I absolutely love it. It is the only thing I have on my eyes today. What's important to know about this palette, though, is that I don't actually use this most for an all-over look. For me, I use this to set up a lot of looks. So the Danessa Myricks palette, for example, that just came out, I love that palette, but it's an all shimmer palette. So I typically will reach for this to set up my look, and then I'll use those shimmers. So the reason I've hit pan in this already is because I'm constantly doing that. I actually, during the last sale, I picked up the Makeup by Mario, the Master Mattes Neutral, more recent matte palette that he came out with, and I was hoping that I could start doing that with this instead. That instead of absolutely driving this palette into the ground, I could start setting up my looks with this. The colors are similar, but I don't like the formula as much. So, it's not terrible, but I thought that this was going to blend more reliably, if I'm honest. It gets patchy on me and it blends away. So it's like, when I'm going to set up a look, I'm mostly focused on my crease area, my outer V, that kind of thing. And if something blends away and gets patchy, it's just not a good look. It's very obvious. Those are not things that I'm covering with shimmers. Like the Ethereal Eyes has a similar formula for the mattes, and I felt like I can get away with it more with that, because I can use the shimmers to sort of camouflage it so you can't see how patchy it is. But I used this recently, the Ethereal Eyes palette. I'll pop it up on the screen. And like I said, it's not awful. You can save it by covering it up, but it's just not nearly as nice and clean looking as the look I have on today. So I wanted to throw that out there. Makeup by Mario, their shimmer formula in the Ethereal Eyes really got to me when that came out. It is really unique. It's really wet looking. It's beautiful. So I wanted to like his eyeshadow palettes. I wanted to get his new eyeshadow palette. But if I'm realistic, it's these three sort of special shimmers, and that's it. So a $68 palette for 3 shimmers, I can't justify that. The other shimmers in here are all right, but they're not special. And I actively dislike the mattes. So that's why I'm resisting getting that palette this year. I really tried to make this work, but it is certainly not a replacement for this. And actually, it's a regret. I really wish that I didn't spend my money on that. You know, the palettes that she's come out with since I Need a Nude that are similar, especially this summer, I feel like we just had 3 in a row. I'm not really interested in those because I don't need warmer mattes. I have Busy Art palettes with warmer matte. Like, I have plenty of warmer mattes. This was a lot more unique, and the shimmers are stunning. So if I'm traveling, for example, I can just bring this and I'm good. I have all kinds of super basic, like, you know, there's no pops of color going on here, but I am going to have a reliably beautiful look every time, minimal effort. So highly recommend I Need a Nude. It has been an absolute workhorse in my collection. I love the formula. It's been fantastic. And even though, like, when I go through my eyeshadows, I'm always saying how Glaminatrix is my favorite formula. That's true overall, especially the shimmers, but even there, I don't have a palette that comes close to the number of uses that I've had with this. So, you know, I'm not going to beat it into the ground. That palette's been out for a long time, so if you were interested, you probably own it already. But in case you forgot about it, it's definitely a good one to get at 20% off. So I don't know how I forgot, but the other eyeshadow palette that I love from Sephora is the Natasha Denona Glam Face Palette. I love this for traveling. If you can see, I've hit pan. You know, a lot of people don't love this blush and highlight. I think they're fine. I actually, when I have traveled with this palette, I've gotten a ton of use out of both the blush and the highlighter because I think they're nice shades. What stands out to me in this palette is well, these shades don't have names, but inner corner. It's just stunning. The formula is stunning. I haven't seen it from her since. I have tried her Chroma Crystal singles. I've tried a bunch of different things that I thought would be similar to this palette, but nothing holds a candle to it. The shimmer formulas that she has now, the I Need a Nude was like the one that sort of came the closest in terms of being as special, but still, those are more wet shimmers, and this is a very dry, flaky shimmer, but it's incredible. It's like you can see it from space. It's stunning. I love it. I couldn't say enough nice things about it. This has been around even longer than the I Need a Nude palette, but I like this so much that I actually bought a backup. So that goes to tell you that coming from somebody who has well over 100 eyeshadow palettes, I hope under 200, but definitely over 100, like, these are the ones that I'm panning, and these are absolutely my 2 favorite palettes that I couldn't live without. This is what I would purchase first if I lost everything. And anyway, moving on from there, eyeliner. So I'll start with my waterline for my lower lashes. I use the Makeup Forever Artist Color Pencil, and I have it in shade 500, Boundless Bisque. I love this because it's just so easygoing. You know, it's comfortable. I don't feel it at all. It lasts all day, and I can blend it out. So I can use it to clean up my eye look. So for example, I can't draw a wing to save my life. I've sort of given up on that. So what I'll use something like this for, if I want a wing effect, is I can use this in my outer corner and do an inverse of a wing. So this has been great for that. This has also been great for cleaning up my brow bone. It blends really easily, and it also lasts all day. So it's just like the absolute Goldilocks of eye pencils for me. You know, I know they just recently came out with a waterproof formula, but I don't feel the need to even try that because this one just works so well and it's comfortable. So I'm not even going to mess with what I feel is perfection. If I had a longevity issue, I might try it, but I don't. So I'm absolutely going to stick with this. It's a little bit expensive, but I use it every single day. So when I run out, I'm absolutely buying it again. For liquid liner, I sort of buy what's ever on sale. I only use liquid liner on my upper lashes to blend my fake lashes in with my lash line. I don't use it for any other reason. So my goal with my liquid liner is to have it be invisible. Like I said, I cannot draw a wing to save my life. So if I did, I might have more recommendations. I would say if I was at Sephora needing a liquid liner though, I would probably stick with the KVD. I've definitely picked that up on sale and it's still as good as it ever was. For an eyeshadow base, today I use the Nars concealer. I have this in light 2.5 creme brulee. I actually love this for covering blemishes because it's not drying and it's flexible. I would not use this under my eyes, but for eyeshadow and blemishes, this is absolutely my favorite. So I'm not going to talk a ton about skin prep in this video. And it's not really because I don't think Sephora has good skincare or primers or any of that. I think they do. I just don't think I need to pay a premium for good skincare. So when I do buy skincare at Sephora, it's always a splurge. It's always like a little treat, not necessary, but you know, I'll definitely mention that when I talk more about what's on my favorites list. Primer. I don't actually have a favorite primer at Sephora. I think that might be the only thing in my entire routine that I don't have a favorite from Sephora right now. The last one that I used was Freck Beauty, the Rich Bitch primer. I did like it. It left a very nice hydrating look behind. The only thing I didn't love about it was it did not play well with every foundation that I paired it with. I think it had some snail mucin in it, and that is very hydrating and it's very glowy and it left a pretty look, but it made some of my foundations a little bit soupy on occasion. I don't know. I prefer primers that are just easy, that work with everything, that don't complain, that hydrate, and you know, I could use a moisturizer. Like today I'm just using moisturizer. So I don't know. I think it might be different if I was using a primer for longevity or redness or that kind of thing. But because I'm not doing that, I'm really just looking for hydration. I think moisturizer is fine. You know, I do love the Bobbi Brown face base. That was my favorite, but I haven't been able to get a good sale on that. And if I can't get it at a deal, I do not think it's worth paying full price, 20% off, even 30% off. Like, it needs to be 40 or 50% off for me to buy that stuff. You know, it's a glorified moisturizer, but it is nice. It lays flat and it works really easily with almost everything I've ever tried it with. So that would be my pick if money were no object. Otherwise, I would stick with a moisturizer. One of the other reasons that I really like to start with a really hydrated base is because I always do my eye makeup first. And when I'm done with my eye makeup, genuinely, I clean it up with my fingers. I just go like this, and that's how I clean up my outer edge. And I can do that because I have so much moisturizer on my face. So that may sound completely silly, but I don't like to worry about if an eyeshadow formula has fallout or not. I like what I like, and I don't want fallout to prevent me from using fun colors or, you know, whatever it is. I just don't like to worry about it. I don't want to work really hard on my base makeup to have it ruined by fallout. So doing it that way, it doesn't even matter. Like, I've had significant fallout on my face before. I just wipe it away. It's the moisturizer makes it so easy. I don't need a wet tissue. I don't need anything. Just I wipe it off with my fingers and I'm good to go. So that's just my personal thing. And I've gotten so used to doing my makeup that way that I just keep going. Mascara. I don't have a favorite mascara right now. My favorite was Bite Beauty, and that's been gone for years now. So everything else is kind of just okay. I don't know. I mean, if I had to buy a mascara from Sephora, I would probably buy the Tower 28 because I do really like that. My only problem with that mascara is that it doesn't last for that long. I feel like once that sweet spot where it's like perfect in terms of how long it's been open, once that passes, I don't know, it's almost like a couple weeks and then it gets really dried out and then it's not great anymore. So I like it. It's affordable, but it's not like foolproof. I also really like the Charlotte Tilbury, the older mascara. I haven't tried the new one. I refuse to spend a lot of money on mascara because I use lashes. That would be different if I didn't, but I don't know. Part of me thinks that, you know, drugstore mascaras still hold up to most of the high-end ones that I've tried, so I'm not the best resource for mascara, but I think that's it. I think that's actually it when it comes to eye makeup. I guess the only other thing I could throw in would be my favorite lash, which is the Lily Lash. I'll pop the one I'm using up on the screen. I like that it's flared on the outer edge. That's my favorite style of lash, and they're half lashes, so they're easy to put on. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they still carry them at Sephora. I've been buying them at Ulta, 50% off, but that would be my pick for lashes at Sephora. All right, enough chatting. Now we're going to start with the base makeup. I think what I'm going to do, so I have trouble doing this and talking, so might speed it up so it's less awkward for everybody. We're just going to jump in. So I am using my Nars Light Reflecting Foundation. This is absolutely my favorite foundation at Sephora. I've loved it for years now. Everything that I've tried that I think is going to be as good is not. I most recently tried the Patrick Ta foundation. I thought it would kind of have a similar finish to this. It doesn't. I don't like it at all. I've worn it so many different ways at this point, and the more I wear it, the more I realize that I don't like it. So I won't be purchasing that during the sale. The other foundation that's been tempting me is the Dior stick, but I'm still on the fence about that. I don't really want to spend a lot of money. I'm definitely going to be buying at least one of these during the sale because I go through them. I wear them every day. This is my everyday go-to. I like this foundation and the Chanel #1 that they sell at Ulta. The Chanel is a little bit less coverage, so if anything, I like this one slightly more. My only problem with this foundation is the shade. So I just don't think Nars has a good shade for me, period. I have tried so many. I have tried so many. And they all pull a little bit yellow on me. I know they do have some cooler shades, but I think they're too light. You know, it's funny because I look pretty pale, but I'm definitely a light medium, and maybe it's the hyperpigmentation that makes me, I don't know. But the light medium, I don't like to go too light because I feel like it shows off my dry patches more, and I don't know if that's in my head or what. But I do like to, if anything, match my undertone, and then I feel like I can sort of get away with messing with the depth with concealer. But I don't like how yellow this pulls on me. Right now I'm mixing Vienna and Valaris. Vienna is a smidge too light. Valaris is a smidge too dark. Yeah, that's L 4.5 and M 1.5. So, I mean, it's not the depth, it's definitely the shade. Like, I mix in the Valaris for a little more than the depth. It's definitely the shade here. It's not great. So, you know, it forces me to buy two. The reason I don't care is because I mix them and I finish them. If I didn't finish them, it would be a bad investment. But it's fine. You know, this combo has been particularly bad, so I'm hoping during the sale I can get a better mixer and look a little bit better going forward. So this is a good opportunity for me to jump in and talk about brushes. I don't have an absolute ton of the Sephora Pro brushes, but like this, for example, the Sephora Pro line, they're fabulous. I highly recommend them at 30% off. At full price, they're overpriced. Like, they cost just as much as a lot of other premium brush brands out there, so I don't think you need to spend the extra money for them, but they're fabulous and they hold up like crazy. So every Sephora sale, I always say, go for the brushes. There's nothing else from the Sephora product line that I feel like is necessarily worth picking up, but the brushes, absolutely fabulous. All right, I am going to have to check this in better lighting when I'm done, but for now, hopefully that's okay. Now I'm going to do concealer. So I actually have three favorite concealers. Unfortunately, this is another shade issue. So the Kosas concealer, I have this in 2.3N. I don't know, it's okay. It's a little bit too light and a little bit too yellow. So I mix it in with the Kulfi Cocoa Crush, and that gives me a better shade match. I really like the finish of the Kosas though. This is my favorite finish because it's hydrating without being overly hydrating. Like, the Kulfi is very hydrating. It's more hydrating, but it leaves a tiny bit of a shine. And I'm trying to minimize the appearance of my under eyes altogether. I don't want to highlight them and bring more attention to the situation. So I want them to be hydrated without being glowy, and combining these two genuinely gives me that effect. My #3 concealer is actually the Natasha Denona concealer. This is newer in my collection. I have this in N4. This is a perfect shade match. So N4 all the way. I love this shade. I have done several wear tests, putting them side by side. You know, I've done that little test a few times now, and I feel like neither of them are super prone to creasing, but the Natasha Denona will crease ever so slightly quicker than these two. It's negligible though. I mean, I certainly don't think it's an obvious difference, but that's just been my experience, you know, but everyone's skin is a little bit different. All of our faces move in slightly different ways. So I don't know. I mean, I've heard some people really don't get on with the Kosas and it creases like crazy on them. So everybody's different, but these three are definitely my favorite. So incidentally, I'm getting a little bit of deja vu because I have done favorites videos just across every category. And when I finished the series going through my entire collection and talking about everything I owned and then what my favorites were, and then a favorites video, and then I think I tried to do one of these on camera favorites videos, most of these products are going to be the same because, like I said, most of my base products are from Sephora. But if you're, for whatever reason, curious what my favorites are from other places, I will include that video in the description box. You know, I mean, there's timestamps, so you can just click on it and look at the timestamps and see if there's anything interesting or different. I know a lot of this is redundant, but I don't know. I'm coming at this from a perspective of when I watch other people's favorite videos, I want to know what their favorites are of all time. I don't want to know what their favorites are of 2024. Like, to me, that's silly. Like, I want to buy the best of the best, not just the best of this year. So that's how I'm coming at it. Obviously, my list of what I'm buying and my experiences, reviews, and all of that, like, I think that's relevant for new makeup. I like new makeup. That's fun and interesting, but I want a vetted favorite, if that makes sense. So that's the reason I'm just doing it again, instead of just focusing on newer products. All right, I just checked the blend. I think we're all right, so I'm going to move on. Really quick, I'm gonna clean up my brows. I just use a pomade. Honestly, I'm not even gonna lie, I've given up on my brows. I always feel like my goal is to make them as unnoticeable as possible. I was not blessed with a lot of hair, so my brows are no exception. They are thin and sparse. And I used to use a pencil to do this, but I'm lazy, and this does it way quicker. You know, and for me, this lasts forever. It's a little tub. I don't even remember the last time I purchased one. I finish them. Like, I completely pan these, so it's a good value for me. I haven't really thought to even try anything else brow related, so when it comes to hair in general, just listen to other people. I'm definitely not the one to have good advice on that. Anyway, so I'm going to start with my contour. So my favorite contour is the Westman Atelier. I got this little mini guy and I use this absolutely every day. I've had it for, I believe, 6 months, and I know it's going, I've checked how much is left. It's going to last me another 6 months easily. So I would never buy a full size. I don't use a lot of contour. I don't bother to contour my nose, my jawline, none of that. I just put a little bit in my cheekbones. And that's it. For me, it's a color thing. You know, this was just the one with the best color. I've tried the Makeup by Mario. I've tried a bunch of others. Charlotte Tilbury. Like, I've tried a ton of contours, and I just like the color of this one the best. Formula-wise, those are just as good. So now I sort of do an extra step that's not really necessary, but I've been doing it for so long. I just keep doing it. I use the Charlotte Tilbury Film Star Bronzing Glow, and I use this to bridge the gap. So I don't want there to be a demarcation of any type between my bronzer and my contour. So I've sort of found that this super muted light bronzer color just does a good job blending everything together. You know, I just keep buying it. I keep hitting pan. I only get the mini because I only use one side. I don't use the highlighter side at all, so it would be crazy for me to buy a full size. I don't know. I sort of feel like one of these days I'm going to buy a new one, and that's going to be when I decide to stop using it. But regardless, it's not that expensive, so in the scheme of things, I'll probably just pick up another one. My favorite bronzer right now is actually the Pat McGrath bronzer. I have it in Nude Honey. I have it in a holiday set. I know these aren't on sale anymore, but you can just get the individual bronzer. I like it because it's easygoing. It's light, and I don't know, it's just been a good color. I like pinker bronzers because if I'm in the sun, I'll turn pink, so I think it's more natural on me. So I am just popping in here to say that when I looked for the Pat McGrath bronzer to tag, I realized that they have it, but they don't have the shade I like. So instead, I would say I would probably buy this one. I have this in other formulas by him, and it's a great color on me. I think it's a great bronzer. When I run out of the Pat McGrath, I'm gonna go with either this or something with a similar color to this, but I think this is what I would like best to replace it as a powdered bronzer. I did think it was worth giving this bronzer an honorable mention because I do like the color and the undertone, but the formula is just okay, and it's way too expensive to be just okay. You know, I sort of feel like I can make it work, but I have to use very specific brushes, and I have to be really light-handed, or it could get patchy or look muddy. So, you know, it was a favorite for a long time, but since I bought this a few years ago, I've just found formulas that are easier to work with and I like better and are better for the price. So I'm going to recommend those instead. But I don't know. I used to really like the Say Sun Melt bronzer. I think that one and one of the Makeup by Mario bronzers I really liked, but I'm honestly, I don't always want to use all cream products. So like today, for example, I think I'm going to use a powder blush. So I don't know if that, maybe it's all in my head, but I feel like a powder bronzer is easier to control somehow. I don't know. I guess if I were to recommend a second formula in the cream, it would be either the Say Sun Melt or the Makeup by Mario, depending on what had a better shade for you. For highlighter, I'm just going to go ahead and use the Pat McGrath highlighter in Opal Allure that's in the set. But honestly, any Pat McGrath highlighter. Like, Pat McGrath has always been my favorite highlighter, so I kind of just grab whichever one's closest to me, and they're all great. That's the old school Pat McGrath stuff that I miss. So another item that sold out. I have a feeling the Pat McGrath highlighters are being discontinued at Sephora. Instead, I would either recommend the Hourglass, the mini strobe powders, or the Fenty. I have Pretty Pearls. I don't think that's in stock, but these are definitely stock from Hourglass and they're beautiful. They're a little bit more subtle than the Fenty, but I'd say either one of those are a good replacement. Okay, for blush, I have a few favorites. I would say probably my longest favorite is the Pat McGrath Flirtatious, just because it goes with everything. You know, somebody pointed out recently, and I thought this was so interesting. You know, blush being as popular as it's been these past few years, I feel like a lot of us now have like blush wardrobes. And I always look to my blushes to go with my eye look and to enhance whatever look I'm going for that day. But somebody sort of pointed out that most of us only have a few blush shades that actually look good on us. So I need to sort of give myself a break. If I want to use the same blush every day, there's a good chance that that blush looks better on me than if I bend over backwards trying to make a more overall cohesive look. Like, if you think about it, blush is what we're supposed to look like naturally if we flush, and there's not a huge variety in that. So I don't know. Maybe it's just me, but that sort of made me feel better because I have so many blushes that I don't use and I'm beating myself up. But it's like, it's not really like eyeshadow. Like constantly switching up blushes, it can backfire. Like I'm sure some people can do that, absolutely, and rock it and it looks great. On me though, I think less is more. So just to make things a little more interesting, I'm gonna start with Flirtatious. And then I'm just going to put a drop of the cream from Patrick Ta and not too much. I don't really recommend this blush overall. I think it's overhyped. I don't think it's that great. I have two of these and I'm not really impressed. So my favorite blushes are the Pat McGrath and actually this from Lawless. This is an Angel. You know, I ended up using this almost every day this summer, so that's why I switched it up with the Patrick Ta. But in general, I think this is a great, really easygoing formula. I don't think you should buy it at Sephora though. And I'm saying that because it's on 50% off on GMA deals like every few months. So I would check and get it there. I don't think it's worth it at full price. I would struggle to say that it's worth it even at 20% off, but I had to mention it because I genuinely wore this blush almost every day. My third favorite from a formula standpoint is probably the Hourglass. Like right now I'm using the Tiger palette a lot, but I will say, don't forget with Hourglass, you don't have to buy these 6-pan palettes. They do have the mini powders. So like, I know that sometimes the shades are limited edition and you can only get them in the palettes, but I genuinely feel like one of the nice things about Hourglass powders is they're not too little, they're not too much, they're just in the middle and they're just right. So it's like two colors side by side where there might be some slight difference. They're not so pigmented that it's noticeable. I have a few of these palettes right now. I think I have at least 4, and I don't find the blushes look all that different from one another. So I say that to caution people. As much as I like them, I don't think you need a whole 6-pan palette. I think their permanent line is nice, and you can either get a single or a mini. Let's face it, not a lot of us are going through completely through these powders anyway. So especially if you want to just try one out and see if you like it, I think the minis are the way to go all the way. You know, I'm not likely going to hit pan on any of these except for the setting powder. And when I do, I'm going to get a mini. I'm probably going to get one during this sale actually. So now I'll talk about setting powders. For under my eyes, I really like to use Dim Light by Hourglass. I have tried the Hourglass setting powder and it's just too much for me. My skin's too dry. I really don't need any setting powder. I would argue I could stop here and I'd be good to go. But there's some part of me that likes to control the shine, at least in my T-zone a little bit, so whatever. I just find it slightly more flattering that way, so I always put just a little bit under my eyes. And I am using dim light right now. Okay, so when I do set my under eyes, I don't want to brighten. I don't want to change the tone of my skin at all. I just want it to be as imperceivable as possible. So I'm using dim light for that right now because it does a good job, but there's a number of Hourglass setting powders that would be the same. It's really the fact that I'm looking for something that's not drying, and this formula is not too drying. So it's a really good setting powder for people with dry skin. My other setting powders. So previously, my favorite setting powder of all time was this from Kosas. It has since been dethroned by this Givenchy Prism Libre #3 Violet Rose. I have this in a mini. So part of me was not going to bring this up because I know that this has been reformulated and it's an absolute nightmare now. However, because so many people have complained about it, part of me thinks that they're going to come out with another version. So like randomly, like I picked this mini up during one of the Sephora sales and it just sat in my drawer. I tried it, I thought it was okay, and then I forgot about it. And then one day I was using the Kosas and it gave me cake face. Quite frankly, I didn't like how it looked. And you know, honestly, this is a very light, easygoing setting powder. I don't know why it did that to me that day, but for whatever reason, that made me reach for this, and it hit different on the day that I tried it. For whatever reason, it's just really light, easygoing. It takes down the shine without causing any dryness whatsoever, and that's really what I need. So I would say at this point, these are probably tied. So my #1 of the moment is Givenchy Kosas #2. But you know, if I ran out of the Givenchy, I would not buy the new version. So I'm not recommending buying this. I would buy the Kosas. I've bought the Kosas at least 3 times now. I have fully panned these. So I definitely like them. I'm hoping that they reformulate the Givenchy again and we can get back to this version, because if they do that, I think people will be thrilled. You know, obviously because you can't get it, I'm going to use the Kosas today. I have this in shade Featherly and I use the tiniest amount. I think I use it in areas that I don't want to look caved in. So my smile lines, shine in that area definitely can accentuate the toll gravity is taking on us all. All right, finally, lipstick. I don't have a favorite lip liner. I guess it would probably be Charlotte Tilbury. No, actually Pat McGrath. If I were to use a lip liner, my favorite would be Pat McGrath. I don't use one often though, so I didn't bother to include it in this video. My favorite lipsticks genuinely is MAC, but they don't sell that at Sephora. So I'm going to use Charlotte Tilbury Wedding Bells. I'm not a Pillow Talk fan. That pulls way too peach on me, and peach is not a flattering color. It brings out like yellow, sallow skin on me. I don't know what it does, but anything that has peach, I run for the hills. So Wedding Bells is definitely more pink than Pillow Talk, but it's definitely similar in tone. So I had my microphone turned off when I went to talk about this, but just real quick, my favorite lip gloss at the moment at Sephora is the Patrick Ta, and she's expensive. It's just a clear gloss. It's not necessarily my favorite formula. That would probably be more like a Pat McGrath, but those are always better to get on her website during one of her sales. She often, in January, has a lip sale. I buy the glosses there. From Sephora though, this is just my favorite. For me, it has value just because it's pretty. The formula is completely average. I have a ton of other glosses that, if anything, I like better because they're more nourishing, but this is the one that I would choose to replace if I lost it because it is so pretty to look at. And it might be silly, but I'm really glad that I own it. I will say I jumped on the hype train and I tried the mini summer Fridays. I mean, the flavors are fabulous. I absolutely love the flavors, but I don't think the gloss is anything that special. It's nice. I'm happy that I have these and I'll use them up, but genuinely any lip gloss is fine. So I do like to do that once in a while. I also forgot to include my favorite setting spray from Sephora, and that is the Hourglass Veil. On a day-to-day basis, I actually just use MAC Fix Plus, but they don't have that at Sephora. So this is more my special occasion setting spray. I really just use it to melt all my powders in, and I do think it improves longevity a little bit. You know, I have desert dry skin, so I don't need a lot when it comes to setting sprays for longevity, but I just think it leaves a beautiful hydrated effect behind, so I'll reach for it even if I'm only going to have my makeup on for 2 hours. I just think it looks nice. So I don't need it, but I definitely like it. But that is it. That is everything. This is the final look. I really hope this was watchable. What I plan on doing going forward is including this list. So in my next Sephora video, if you don't want to watch me painstakingly put all of this on my face, I'll put all of my top products in the description box so you can look at them that way. I don't have affiliate links because I'm too small, frankly. Between this and Instagram, I don't have enough followers to have affiliate links, but you know, I will still definitely list products. And yeah, I think that's it. I think my next video will probably be going over my loves list and trying to whittle down what I buy. Then I'll probably do another video about what I actually buy. And then at the end of all of that, I will do a haul and I will do a tally of how much I've spent to embarrass myself into making better decisions. So that's what we have to look forward to. I may do a Halloween video. Real quick, I love Halloween. I'm a Halloween girl all the way. I dress up every year. I decorate my house. I do all the things. For some reason, I think it was the hurricanes. I think having the 2 hurricanes in a row, I don't know, it just like got me out of the spirit of Halloween. All of September, I was testing looks, trying on costumes. Like, I was stoked for Halloween, and I don't know, I just sort of fell off and I got into this weird like malaise about the whole thing, and I'm gonna try to reverse that. And if I can successfully do that, I will do a short Halloween video. And then yeah, then it's off to the races. Then we are all holiday all the time. So I'll probably do a new makeup and other sales, and something that's really important. I know everybody says this, but you don't need to shop at Sephora. 20% is not that good. It's only good, it's convenient because everything's in one place. But each of these brands that I mentioned today will have their own sales. They'll have their own Black Friday. A lot of them won't be better than 20%, But if you get any less than 20% at Sephora, 100% wait, 100%. Wait and just go to the brand's websites and you will get a better deal. I guarantee it. So none of this stuff is necessary, but all of this stuff is my favorite. It's been my favorite for a few years now, and I've tried a ton of stuff. So I hope this is useful, and I hope you're having a fabulous week, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.